We got a really good group today. We had over 70 people signed up for today's session. And I was looking through the list, and there are so many representatives from so many different libraries. We have tons of consortia, lots of local people, GMILKs, Westchester, CW Mars, um, Share, Metro Share, New Hampshire, just so many people. I'm really excited for you all to see this webinar today. Thank you for joining us. So today's webinar, of course, you're here, so you know what's going on, but this is building your library website in Aspen Discovery. And even if you're not planning to build your entire website in Aspen, you can still use plenty of the web builder tools just to add some additional value to your site, extra bits and bobs and bells and whistles. So even if you're like, why would I use the web builder? I don't need Aspen for my website. There's plenty that you can make use of in the web builder. Cal is my co-host today. So she will be here keeping an eye on the chat and your questions and dropping in helpful links and all the good things that she does. So I will be leading us through this journey. There is a lot to cover, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Let me start first by saying that if you don't have the agenda up, if you haven't looked at it in a while, it is, oh, Cal posted it already. She's on top of it before I even knew. So yeah, that link is in there for anyone who's just joining. You can see what we're going to talk about. So let me get that up as well. And I'm going to start sharing my screen. So yeah, this is what we're looking at today. So after today, the recording of this session, we will put this on this page. So you'll always be able to refer back to this page, watch the recording, see all the resources and everything. Before this session, ideally, you maybe looked at the permissions and related settings, just to make sure that you are set up if you want to follow along today. I know we have a lot of folks here from consortia, people who may be newer to Aspen or less familiar. So if you are not a full-on administrator for your Aspen server, and you're just a consortia member, not just a, but you know what I mean, make sure that you're contacting your consortia or library admin team if you are not able to access all the web builder things you need. So that's something you'll need to work out with them. Of course, if you have any more questions about how do I get access to this thing, how do I grant access to this thing, send us a support ticket. We are happy to get you help you get set up. So those are all the permissions you'll need for everything today. I did recently add, I think just yesterday, I realized that some people might have questions about indexing your web builder content. So I made sure to add this section here about how to turn on indexing for your web builder pages and your web builder content in general. So we will touch on that a little bit. And I've linked to a bunch of documentation that's related and resources. So I know some people here are more experienced and have already jumped into web builder and done a lot, and are maybe here for more advanced tips. But then we have some libraries here who are just curious and wondering if they can do this at all. The answer is yes, you can. And if you want to go back to the basics, dive deeper than what I can cover today, definitely check out the tutorials on our Help Center, because those are going to give you the walkthrough in detail that you might need. And then I have a lot of extras linked here. So not everyone is a graphic designer. Of course, Aspen, I think it makes it, you don't have to know any coding or have any advanced design or HTML knowledge to engage in the web builder. But these are just some articles I found that I thought had good tips. I do have a little bit of a background in graphic design, so I was able to kind of gauge the accuracy of some of these things. So I think those are good basic overall tips just for design principles and things. And we have a lot of free resources linked here as well, except for Affinity, that is paid, but it is very affordable. But Photopia or Photopea, whatever, that's free. Canva, if you're not already using Canva, I highly recommend it. And I even put a link here to apply for a free nonprofit account for Canva because you work for libraries, it's nonprofit. And then this Coolers link, that's to a tool that helps you generate color palettes. So if you're interested in more of the customization side of things with theme, that's also kind of ties into building a library website in Aspen. And that's what we covered at our last Aspen Academy. So if you're interested in the whole customization suite, definitely check out the recording for that and our customization tutorials on the Help Center as well. All right, so let's get into the actual meat and potatoes of what we're doing. Let's start off with basic pages. So we're going to go into Aspen administration. And here we have our web builder module. That's what I'm going to be going over today, as well as some other settings that are related, especially for those of you who are thinking of making Aspen your whole website. But the journey starts here, going into basic pages. As the name indicates, it's a basic page. So it's for something very simple where you don't necessarily need a complicated layout. And you can have a basic page that, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to edit one of these existing ones here just so I can show you the basic structure. So when you create a new basic page or custom page, you're going to give it a title. So the title for this page is Our Mission and Values. Every page in Web Builder also needs a URL alias, and that's how you access this Web Builder page. So whenever I'm ready to link to it or view it, that's how I'm going to do that. So you type in the /, you have to type that in. And if I wanted to view this page once it's published, I can copy that up in the URL, and then I would just add it behind your catalog URL. So once it's ready to view, that's how I can access the page. So that's why the URL aliases are important. Do not put spaces or weird characters in them. Just keep it simple, lowercase letters, no spaces. You're good to go. The teaser, this next section here is really only for when you're indexing your web builder content. So like any website, if you want people to be able to search through the pages on your website, that's when you would want to turn on indexing. And we'll talk about that setting in a bit. But this is what shows up in the library website search. So if I back up here, I'm on the Springfield Public Library. This is just our test make-believe library. And I've switched the search from library catalog to in library website. That drop-down option will appear when you're either indexing an external page, like something outside of Aspen, or if you're choosing to index your web builder pages. So you can see that that page I'm on right now, this basic page, Our Mission and Values. So that teaser is what shows up in the search results before you go to that page. So that just gives users a little more context about what that page is, what they might find there, all that good stuff. Now, the contents, of course, that's what actually shows up on the page. So I only have this text editor here, and that's fine, but you can still do a lot. You can still have different text sizes. You can have dividers. You can have lists. You can insert images if you want. And if most people, I think they just start clicking things around and, you figure it out. But I do have on the Help Center, there is a whole section under the Web Builder section of Help Center that's just about the rich text editor. So if you really want to dive into what the toolbar things can do, that can be a good reference for you. And we're going to touch on some of these things as we go through, especially when we get into the custom pages. But just know there's a lot of options for formatting text and inserting images. Now, you do have the ability to require a login to access. So if we do have at least one library who is using Web Builder to create like a faux intranet for their staff because they didn't have SharePoint. They didn't want to buy that. But they did want an internal place that staff could access. So they made a web builder page that was only accessible to their staff patron types. So if you click require login to access, then you can select whichever patron categories. And technically, I mean, you could make a page that was only visible to other patron categories as well, but that seems to be the use case that we know of right now, is building a page for your staff. I'm just gonna uncheck that because I want anyone to be able to see this for now. Next, so every web builder page and web resources, you will be able to assign an audience and a category or multiple of either. These audiences and categories, you get to decide what these are. We load in just a set of defaults with every Aspen installation, but if you don't like these, or if you just want to make some modifications, add some of your own, you can, and it is super easy. So these are just ways to categorize the pages so that if you are making your website pages indexed, those categories and audiences show up on the left-hand side in these library website search facets. So that way, if I'm looking through your library website and I want, things that just have to do with arts and music, or things that have to do with children, I can narrow down with the facets in that search. Now, to make these categories, if you want to modify them, maybe you've already seen that in the web builder module over here. It's at the bottom where it says audiences and categories. So if I just pop open one of those, it just lists out everything. So we have added some to this instance that are, unique to the Help Center and unique to our testing. But if you want to edit an existing one, you can just edit it. And it's just a matter of changing the label. And of course, if you want to add a new one, you can add new, you can delete them, do whatever you want. It's super easy. As soon as you add a new one or modify it, it'll show up when you go to make your selections. So that's how I would categorize these. So maybe I could put, everyone for this. I put library documents and policies. You get the idea. And then at the bottom, you'll have your libraries listed. Since I'm on an account where I can only, manage web builder content for my home library, that's the only library I'm seeing right now. So if you're in a consortia, that may be the setup that you have, is if you're only allowed to do stuff for your library's catalog, then that's what you would see. And checking that box next to the library, that activates it. That's kind of like the publish checkbox. So if I didn't have that checked, when I go to, let me save it. So I unchecked my library, and now when I copy mission, that URL alias, and I try to access that page, it says page not found. So that's just the important thing. If you're trying to preview what you're doing live, just make sure that box is checked. And then when I refresh, oh, come on back. There we go. So now it's there. So we do get questions during implementation, and I'm sure some of you are wondering as well. Okay, well, I don't want everything to be visible while I'm creating it, right? Like this is a work in progress. So how do I keep people from seeing it? So my first thought is, if you're building out your website for the first time in Aspen or building extra web pages, and if you really don't want people to see it, you might want to make sure that your indexing for the web builder pages is not enabled. The only downside to that is that your web resources and your web builder pages, they're on that same indexing. So people wouldn't be able to find your web resources that way if you're not indexing. So it's kind of an all or nothing with the web builder content. And how to make sure, like, are my web builder pages being indexed or not? That lives in your library system settings. So if I go to primary configuration and click on library systems, and if I edit that there, there's a header called Web Builder Results. So this allows searching locally web created content. That is what would get those web builder pages searchable in Aspen. So people could potentially find them if they go to in-library website and search, or if it comes up in Explore More. So if you're not ready for people to see it yet, I just maybe turn that off, unless you're already using web resources, in which case they're kind of tied together. Let's check up on the chat. There was a question about the checkbox.
I'm explaining both options, but if you want to talk through them too while I'm typing frantically, please do.
Yeah. So let's see. The question is, how is that checkbox, so this one down here, different from the allow access to patrons of these home locations at the top of that list? So they're asking about allow access to patrons of these home locations. So Cal's explaining that the checkbox at the bottom, this is, think of this as publish this URL to the library catalog, make it visible. Obviously, if I don't specifically link to this page from somewhere, the chances of someone finding it are not that likely, I guess, unless they're really specifically searching for it. But you have to check that box in order to preview it. So if I just want to check and see like, oh, okay, this is how it looks so far, I could just go right back and uncheck it and save it. And that way people wouldn't be able to find it again. So you could keep checking and unchecking that, depending on when you're ready to publish it. Now, the top option up here where it says allow access, yeah, Cal is saying it's a very specific use case where you might be tailoring custom pages to patrons of specific libraries. So for most cases, yeah, you can just kind of ignore that one. You'd have to be doing something very special and specific for that to be necessary. Like if you want to limit a web builder page to certain people, I think require login to access is the more commonly used one, because then you can separate it by patron category. If you really wanted to lock it down even further, you could combine it with that, like only library staff from Springfield Public Library, and that's it. So that's
the other thing, Morgan, to note is like, we have so many different consortial configurations. So on this, what she's sharing right now, it only has one location listed, but in some cases you might have hundreds of locations where it might make some more sense and you're creating very like custom specific pages. But for the allow access to patrons of these home libraries, if you just leave it unchecked, the hierarchy is by publishing all the way at the bottom under libraries, that will take care of it for everybody.
Yeah. So said another way, just leave it unchecked by default. You don't have to check that. Only worry about the one at the bottom. All right. So let's keep on rolling. So there is our basic page. Now, let's dig into custom pages a little bit. So for our basic page, we have one text editor and we can do some stuff in there. The custom pages gives us more options for the layout and content that we can add to our pages. So I'm going to demo just making one from scratch this time. And for this, I actually want to build out our library homepage. And actually, I think I already made that. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit it. I'm going to delete everything here just so that we can start from scratch. All right. So when you create a custom page, again, you're going to give it a title. So in this scenario, I'm creating a page that I want to become the new landing page for our catalog, because that is possible. So we all know that by default, when you go to your library, your Aspen catalog, the browse category page is the default. But if you want Aspen to be your whole website, you have the option to create another web page in Aspen that will become the landing page. So that if I go to, librarycatalog.library.org, that page would come up instead of the browse categories. So I'm going to call it home, and I'm going to give a URL alias of /home. just so I know this is my home page. And then once you save your setting, then you'll be able to add rows. So these become the building blocks of the pages. So if I click add row, that keeps adding rows. And if you're familiar with the concept of like spreadsheets, you have your rows, you have your columns, and you have your cells. That's exactly what we're doing here. So I've added 3 rows, and within rows, you can add more cells. So if I click the plus sign over here on the right, that's going to let me add more cells, and it'll just keep adding them and spacing them out evenly. If I decide, oops, that's too many, I can get rid of that just by clicking the minus sign. And once I save, you'll have even more options for moving things around. So you can use these up and down arrows. If you don't see all the arrows that you think you need, just save it and the arrows will appear so you can move things around. If I add cells, I'll be able to move things around that way as well. So I saved it and now I have my left and right arrows and I can move content around. Yes, you can, Bethany. So Bethany in the chat is asking, can you alter the width of the columns? So you'll notice that as I add these cells, they're automatically spacing. So think of this as like 50% and 50% makes 100. So what if I wanted 25% and 75%? So a smaller cell here and a bigger one. There is a section on the Help Center that explains this better than I can speak it because I always stumble over it. But basically that setting is under layout settings. So I did that really fast. Let me back up. I am editing the cell that I want to modify. So I'm clicking that little edit button. And think of the web builder page it's a 12 column structure. So the 100% equals the number 12. So Aspen is automatically, making those calculations. So since there's 2 columns in this row, it's changing these to 6. So 6 and 6 equals 12. But if I wanted this to be smaller, I could put in 4 for the smaller size. I could put it in like that. And then when I go back to my page, so now you can see that's smaller, but 4 and 6 does not equal 12. Math, 6, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I need to add 2 to this one. So I'd edit the bigger one. So I just change that to 8. And now when I go back to my page, now you can see that it fills the whole row there. So Cal did drop a link in the chat for a more visual representation of what's going on here. So if you're interested in modifying, like not having them automatically be evenly spaced, then check out that documentation because that'll help you wrap your head around it. Yeah, you might, save first, Susan. If you don't see the ability to add rows, save the setting, and then you should see that come up. All right, so I've added a few things here. Let me just delete that, or I'll move it to the bottom, actually. So once you start figuring out the layout of your page with your rows and your cells, you can start adding content. So let's say at the very top of my page, I want to embed a collection spotlight that's like new at the library. So even though we don't have all the browse categories, I still have something at the top that's featuring our newest items that people are interested in. So I edited that cell and I'm calling it new at the library. If I could spell. So I'm giving it a title. And then under source type, you get to decide what's in here. And I must have messed up my own permissions when I set up this test user because I'm not able to change that. So I wonder what's going on. Well, I'm just going to back right out of that. Sign in as Aspen admin and we'll not even have to worry about it. So let me go back in here. thought I tested everything. Okay, so I'm editing home again. There's my cell that I just edited before, so I'm going to edit that. All right, now to change the source type, by default, it's text/images. And that's going to give you that same text editor that we saw on the basic pages. But you have lots of different options for things that you can embed. You can even embed a basic page or a basic page teaser. You can embed forms, images, PDFs, all these things here you can embed within a web builder page. So we'll take a look at embedding some of those other things later. But for now, I want to embed a spotlight I made. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to pick the spotlight I want to embed. So I have new adult books. I'll go ahead and select that and then save my changes. So now it's embedded that spotlight on my page. And let's say I want another row underneath it that is for my book clubs. So I could edit, these two cells and give each one a title, but maybe I want a title for that whole row. So instead of editing the cell, I'm going to edit the row over on the right. And from here, I can give it a title. So I'll say book clubs. Wow, never type when people are watching. So I'm giving it a row title here and then saving my changes. And now I want to put in two advertisements basically for two different book clubs. So I'm going to go over here and edit this left cell. Now, if I had already uploaded this image that I wanted to use, I could select it from the images I have uploaded already. But I don't already have it uploaded, and that's okay. So I'll just switch it back to text/images, and I can insert an image from here too. So if I want to upload from this editor, I can. I'm just going to drop it in here. Where are you, image? And I'm dragging it in from off screen. So once you drag it in, it's going to generate this source URL. I like to make sure I give it a description. So and the image description it functions as the alt text for screen readers. So important for accessibility. It tells me the dimensions of the image. Usually if it's, this is an okay size. If it was something huge, I might try to size it down, but I'm just going to say okay. And if I wanted to link this to a different page, I could click that and insert a link and put in whatever URL I want. But I'm not going to do that right this second. So there's my image. I'm happy with it. I'll go ahead and save my changes and go back. But let's say I want to upload these images first, or I already had. So you can upload images first if you go to Web Builder and Images. And that's like the full repository of all of your images. So this instance has a lot of images on it. So you do have ways to sort through your image and filter through them as well. So if I knew that it had a certain title, I think that's probably the most useful way to filter. So I could add filter, and if it contains, whatever word, I would be able to filter through all my images. You can also just upload an image from here. So if I add new, I could give it a title if I wanted. So I'll just say graphic book club. And there's all these different options for uploading here, but you don't have to worry about adding a different size image for each one of these, because if you upload a full size image, Aspen will automatically generate the others. So I'm going to select my full size image here. And then I'm going to save. And then Aspen automatically generates all the other images. So some of these look the same, and that's because they have to be a certain pixel size. And when you hover over the tooltips, it'll actually tell you what the max size is. So for example, my original image it's only 400 pixels. So it's not going to blow up the extra large image because it's less than 1100 pixels. But if I scroll down, the smaller images that are less than 400 pixels, it's able to generate that. So that, I believe, has to do with the responsive layouts in Aspen. I think that Aspen will automatically adjust to different sizes based on how you're viewing the pages. So just has those other size images ready to go. So now if I go back to my page, go back to my custom pages, go back to home. So I already uploaded that to my image repository. So if I click edit on this cell, I could switch it to image, and then I'd be able to select it. Graphic Novel Book Club. You can also do some URL action in here. So if I want to open a URL in a new tab or the same tab, you can link to the image this way if you're uploading an image as the source type. Just gonna copy, oops, cannot type graphic. All right. So then when I save my changes, there you have it. I have my two images side by side. Now, let's say I want a row at the bottom that has maybe contact information. Since this is going to be the front page of my new website, I want to have some of that stuff there. So I added the row. It automatically adds it to the bottom. So if you want to move your rows up, just use those arrows. I'm going to edit this one. And another one of the source types you have is library hours and locations. So you can just embed that in there. And library hours and locations has gotten a facelift. So it's looking very nice now. It has these nice little buttons. It has a little map embedded on there, has your, open until highlighted there. So it looks really snazzy. So I have embedded that at the bottom of my page. The other thing you want to keep in mind is that if you add a row or cells and you don't add something to them, it's going to display this message, could not load contents for this cell. So just make sure that you delete that out of there. I think you can get around it if you, this is kind of like a weird fancy thing, but the only way I've been able to trick it, like if you really want a blank space, is entering in this. So it's basically putting in like an invisible space. I'm going to paste that little snippet into the chat. It puts it in an invisible space. I don't know if it's actually going to work. So let me save my changes and go back. Okay, it still doesn't work. So never mind. Abort, abort. No. But let me show you what that looks like. So if I come down to the bottom and make sure my library is selected, I'll be able to preview my page. So let me go to /home. So here is my new home page so far. So I have my carousel up there. I have my book clubs. And down here I have my library information. Yeah, this is actually a preview. Cal is mentioning in the chat that this is the 2402 release on Valentine's Day. So this is just a preview of what's coming up in a couple of weeks or next week. Yeah. Oh my God. Feels like every time we have an Aspen gathering, it's like, it just happens so fast. All right. Let's say here, I want to talk about some other tricks with the custom pages. So these are some getting into more advanced sort of things. When I go to edit a cell, if I have it on text/images, so the default, even though you can do a bunch of formatting with your text in here, you can get to the HTML by clicking this source code button. So let me actually pop up in a different one here. I'm going to open up this one. So if I wanted to do something else in this cell, I could click on that little caret brackets thing in the top left, and I'd be able to see the code. And I can add more code in here as well. So if I have an HTML snippet, if I have something I want to embed, I can add that. Bethany's asking inserting buffer space between sections. So I'm glad you asked that. There is a way to do that. I still haven't, I know there's probably a way to make blank space. I just can't think of it right off the top of my head. But let's say you wanted something like this. So I'm switching over to Bennington's Children's catalog. So they have these different sections, like here is a row with different images in it. And this is also its own row, this little separator. So I'm going to pop open under the hood and show you how that's done. And maybe you can figure out another way for this. Actually, I think I just answered my own question. So this is the web builder cell for that little divider there. So how this was done is inserting a table. So with this table tool, if you click up there, you can insert just a 1 row, 1 column table. And then when you select the table and click table properties, if you go to advanced, you can select the background color. So I suppose you could insert a table with no borders and no color, and then it would just kind of recreate an empty space there. There's probably a more elegant workaround, but that solution just came to me just now. So that is a thing that you can do. And if you want to edit that again, you just click the table. You can click into table properties. You can add borders. You can change the spacing and the padding between the cells. You can add a border if you want. And I could even pop back into the source code and get even more particular with it. Now, these are more advanced things. Obviously, you don't necessarily need to get in here if you're not a coder, you don't know HTML, that's fine. But for the people who do like to do these custom things, just know that that is available for you. So let me go back over here. Other tips, I want to demo adding let's see. I checked a page and it's that code along with another. Okay, they're talking about using just the P tags. Okay. That might work too, Michelle. I haven't tested that. Let's see. Nope, don't delete that. We got the smarties in the room piping up now. All right, let me put in a BR, see what happens. Or I guess a /BR. Nope. I think that might be doing it. I'm excited. Ah, no. All right, I'm going to try the P tags without the little thing in the middle. I just do a tiny space anyway. All right, this is kind of a squirrel. I'm not going to chase that right now. Let's keep going. I want to demo how to add a YouTube video really quick. So coming in here, I could use the source type of YouTube video and paste in the URL. So that will definitely work. However, I personally like to leave it on text/images, and I like to embed the code. That's just my personal preference. So if I have a YouTube video I want to embed, I discovered this cat timer video recently and I wanted to make sure everyone knew about it. So I'm going to click share. And when you click on embed, that's going to give you the code that you need. So I'm just going to click that and copy it. And if I go to source code, I can paste that in. I like doing it this way because you can manually adjust the size of the YouTube frame. So if I wanted it to be smaller or more square or whatever, I can adjust those numbers here and make it to be whatever I want. But once I click out of code view, there is my magical video embedded on my page. Let's see, other tips and tricks. this isn't something that is probably going to be used very often, but just to give you another example of the wild things that some libraries are doing with Web Builder, this is Payson Library, and they have actually, oh, they might have taken it off. No, they didn't. So they made a teen page in Web Builder. This is all just the Web Builder. So they have a collection spotlight embedded up here, some other images, and at the bottom, they've actually embedded some code for little games that you can play in the Web Builder page. So I never thought I would be able to play Donkey Kong Country in Aspen. What a time to be alive. Here we are. So I could play that in the browser if I wanted. Oh, I'm gonna get out of that. I was starting to play Mario music. Anyway, let's keep on going. I also want to make sure that you know, for people who are comfortable with CSS customization, like in your theme settings, don't forget that you can apply CSS to your web builder pages. So I'm going to pop open the hood again on the Help Center because we use CSS all over the place in the Help Center to standardize some elements. So for example, all these things at the top of every Help Center page, those are all stylized with CSS so that, if I want to make a change to the look and feel of these boxes or the fonts or anything, I don't have to go back and change every single page. You can use CSS to change it across your whole site. So if I edit this web builder page, for example, because spoiler alert, if you didn't realize it already, the Help Center is completely built in Aspen in the web builder. So if I edit that and then pop open the hood again with the source code view, you can assign whatever class or ID to elements in the web builder pages, and then you can target those from your theme settings with CSS. So obviously this isn't a CSS class, but I just wanted to make sure that people, had that light bulb moment if they hadn't realized it already, that you can insert your own IDs and classes into your web builder pages. All right. So I just want to mention again, after you're done with your pages, while you're still building things out, if you don't want people to see them, just make sure that you've gone to your library system settings. So I'm going to go into that again. And just be aware of whether or not your web builder results are being indexed. So having this checked on means that anyone can potentially discover a page that you've published. So if you've checked that box at the bottom from your library, people could potentially find it in your library website search. So just want you to be aware of that. But, once you are ready, it's so good to have those indexed and searchable because they can potentially come up and explore more. So I haven't tested this, but I'm going to try it anyway. Can't remember if I unpublished library policies. Yeah, maybe that was a bad example. Didn't have that one ready to go, but you could potentially see your web page results and explore more. Mark is asking, can you merge cells in a column on a custom page? You cannot merge cells at this time. That would be pretty cool though. But yeah, I'm not sure how that code would rearrange itself if it did get merged. I'd have to figure that out. Let's see here. I'm gonna go back. Let's talk about some other things because we are 15 minutes till the top of the hour and there's so much more in Web Builder that I want to get to. So let's talk about custom forms and quick polls and all the other goodness. Custom forms, you have the ability to make custom forms in Aspen. So even if you're a library who's like, we probably won't do web pages, I think custom forms, quick polls, and web resources are some of the most useful things to anyone in Web Builder. So just to give you an idea quickly from our model site, you probably have already seen this, maybe during implementation, but just to give you a preview, you can embed a form into a web builder page. So at the bottom here, you can kind of, once you know how to do web builder, you can kind of see what the structure is. So like, here's a row with an image, here's another row, and this is like a cell, and this is a cell that has a form embedded in it. But you don't need to embed a form in a page in order to access it. You can just get straight to the form. That's totally fine. So let's see here. Maybe for my new library website, I want to make a feedback form. Like, tell us what you think about the new site. So I'm going to call it, library feedback. I'm going to give it a URL alias because, again, I can embed it or I can just go straight to that URL. You can require login if you want people to be legit library users. Introductory text. This is just to explain what the form is and what you want people to do with that. The fields. This is where you get to decide what are you asking for on this form. So, for something like this, I'd probably want their contact information, perhaps. You can change the field type. So email address would check to see if it's in a valid format. Phone. So this is also coming up in the new release is these pre-fill fields. So if a user is logged in, it's supposed to pull in that information from their account if they're logged in. That's how I understand it. It's brand new though. Let's see. Next, maybe I want to ask them, what do you use the library for most? So I could type in that question for my label. I mostly use the library for, and then I could have a selection of options. So that's where the select list values column comes into handy. So between all of my values, I just want to use commas. So books, movies, music, ebooks, audio, wow. Events, research. So just separating your options with commas. The description just comes up as a little tooltip to get more info about that, what you're asking for. So I could say, provide a valid email address, and I'll show you what that tooltip looks like. Default value is just maybe if you want some helper text populated by default when they go to fill that in. And then, of course, you can mark if something is required over here. So I at least want maybe their name, maybe at least an email. And I could put in, feedback and change that to a text area so they have more room to type. Checkbox. Maybe I'll just say like, check here if you want to have someone follow up with you. That just puts a little checkbox there. You can have results emailed to you. So you would just put in your email addresses. It's not typed right, but that's fine. And then the submission text. So what they see after they submit the form. And like most things with the web builder, you have to select your library in order to publish this form or this web page, whatever it is. So I selected Springfield, I'm saving it. And now when I go directly to that URL, I can see my form. All right, quick polls. I know that quick polls are newer to some people, so I wanted to show you what that is for. Forms are more for like, sign up for this or give us more specific feedback, like type things in. A quick poll is like, you want people to vote on options. So Cal had set up some really good examples like choose your new library mascot. So if I pop into here, just like all the other web builder things, you're giving it a title, you're giving it a URL. So you could either embed it or you can link directly to this library mascot poll. You get to decide the status of the poll. So at some point, maybe you don't want people to continue voting. You want to close it at a certain time, so you can change the status. If I wanted people to vote, I could switch it to open. Give it introductory text to explain what you want people to do. And then you'll be entering in the fields. So these are the things that you want people to vote on. You can also optionally allow people to submit their own suggestions. So maybe someone has another good idea for a mascot name that you hadn't thought of. So if you click allow suggesting new options, they'll be able to add those and other people could vote on them too. You also get to require, if they're logged in, you could require their name or email. So those are optional. And when people vote in the quick polls, you can optionally show them the results so far. So if you want people to be able to see who has voted for what, like how many, you could show them a graphic results. You could show them just a table with data. So you have options for that. And then, of course, click your library in order to publish it. So I opened up that poll. And once you have your poll saved and created, you can view the submissions. So these are individual submissions to the poll of people who have voted. Looks like Cal is trying to game the poll with all of her duplicate submissions. So then if you want to view the results in a graph form, you can view that graph from here too. All right. So I see some questions in the chat about navigation. It's hard to talk about Web Builder and making your library website in Aspen without addressing menu links and other things. So let's see here. You're talking about the actual home page, like having events coming before research. Aha, okay. So let's pop into menu links really quick. I'm not gonna have time to go super in depth on menu links, but that is going to live in your library system settings. So I'm going to go to my settings. Menu links are kind of towards the bottom down here. So if you wanted to reorganize, this list, you just drag and drop your menu links to move them around. And then you would save to make changes. And all those pages, if you're building out new pages in Web Builder and you want to link to them, people aren't going to know how to access them unless you add a menu link. So just a little thing about menu links really quick. It's a good idea before you even dive into making your library website in Aspen or even adding extra content to just start planning what you want this to look like. What content do you want? What are you going to link to and where? So even just, write it out, sketch out your library homepage. And keep in mind that you don't have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to this stuff. So spend some time browsing other libraries' websites, the ones in Aspen, but also just library websites in general. Notice what you like or don't like. Think like a patron and try to find information on that page with their navigation and see what was successful, what was easy. Because, patrons are the ones who are going to be using this, so they need to be able to find what they're looking for. And here's a question for you in the chat. What do you think people are looking for most when they're going to your website? There might be a lot of guesses, but I can tell you right now, they're probably looking for your contact information, your address, your phone number. So those things should be very easy to find. And of course, they're probably also looking for your catalog. So that's one benefit of having Aspen be your website because it's always going to be there. Everything else, though, is just bonus. So for menu links, when you're planning these out, make sure that you don't have too many. I'd maybe pick like up to 5 broad categories of content and then make use of drop-down menus so that you don't have to have all these individual links. Also think about how you're naming them so that they're not too long, because you definitely don't want to add so many menu links that they start going over to the second line, because that never looks so great. So that's my little menu link soapbox. So to make my homepage that I created in Web Builder, my actual homepage. So if I go back to custom pages, I'm going to need that URL alias. So that /home. Now here is how, when you're finally ready to pull back the curtains and make this your homepage, if you want to replace that as your main page of Aspen, here's what you do. You're going to go to, if I can remember, I think it's under, nope. Yes, primary configuration, and we are looking for host information. If you don't have access to this based on your current settings, you might need to ask your admin for help. But we're creating a new entry here. So for the host name, that's your actual Aspen URL. So I'm just going to copy that in a second. Copy it from up here. Just the catalog name. Don't put in the HTTP or anything else. So that's my catalog. I'm going to select my library, so Springfield, and then for the default path, you're plugging in that URL alias of that page you want to become your new home page. So I'm going to save this. And now when I go to the home page, ta-da! It's not the browse categories anymore. It's that wacky home page that I just made. So that is how you officially switch your homepage in Aspen. Let's see here. I know we are running out of time and I didn't get to go over everything, but I just want to give another shout out. If you follow up on anything from today, definitely look into web resources because I think that it is such a useful thing, especially if you're making Aspen your new website. Rather than making a web builder page that just has a list of these things on it, use web resources to enter these in. You're basically just adding in a web resource one by one. So you're the name of the resource, the URL, uploading a logo, and adding the information. Let me pop open one that's already made so you can see. So you can control some of the access with this as well, like if it needs a library card only. If you have to be in the library to use it, it will use the IP address detection along with this. And if you have your web resources entered in, Aspen is automatically generating a web page that you can link to if you want to. So to get to the web resources list here, you're just adding a link directly to it to the end of your catalog, and it's generating this page for you. And you're sorting them into all the same categories that you're creating for your web builder pages. So when we looked at the categories and audiences, and the other benefit is not only does it generate this page, but you can find them in the catalog search results. So if I don't even know that I can find that other stuff, it will show up in Explore More when you enter them in as web resources. So definitely do not sleep on web resources, especially if you're converting Aspen to your whole website. If you're going to enter in stuff, do it there rather than entering them in a web builder page because it's just more dynamic as a web resource. Let's see here. I had no hopes of keeping caught up with the chat. Are there pre-built template themes we can build off of? How could I have possibly forgotten? So there are not pre-built templates at this time, although people have asked for that, but this is brand new as well. If you create a web builder page and you're like, I like the layout of this and I just want to copy that to maybe other libraries in my consortia or other pages on my website, what you can do is you can edit that and there's a copy button, or there will be. So you copy that and that will basically make a copy of that page. Yeah, coming soon is to the pre-built templates. You can already copy web builder pages. So when you copy it, you just want to make sure that you give it perhaps a new title, and I would definitely change the URL alias as well. It tells you right up here what to do. So in that sense, you can create your own template right now and then copy that and just swap out the content. I refuse to acknowledge X. No one has asked for that yet, Susan. She's asking about changing the Twitter logo to the X logo. Yeah, I'm surprised no one has asked for that, but maybe no other people aren't ready to move on either. We're just willingly continuing to call it Twitter as a collective. All right. I did not get quite through everything. So definitely, if you have questions about anything we didn't get to go over, please submit a support ticket. I imagine we will have more Aspen Academies about this in the future, because this is a hot topic and we could easily have an hour and a half, and maybe do like a workshop or something. So please stay tuned to the Aspen Academy for more chances to learn about Web Builder, but definitely check out the resources on our Help Center, because we have instructions and tutorials for all of the things in Web Builder. And if all else, reach out to us too. We are so happy to help you. You can post in the Slack channel to, see what other libraries are doing or have done, get help with things like that from other libraries, or just submit a support ticket to us. Before we wrap up, are there any other questions? Quickly. Okay. Hopefully this gives you at least a starting point and some food for thought. I'm really looking forward to seeing what else you all come up with, because we are just constantly impressed and looking for new examples of cool things that y'all are doing. So if you made something and you're like, look, Mom, what I did, please send it to us because we would love to see it. Thank you all. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day and week. Bye, everyone.